Well, hello everyone. We're doing live broadcast this evening, and we're on the Family Tree Brand Life Coach channel tonight, and I'm hosting the Church for the Narcissistically Abused program that they have, and I get to be the guest host tonight and the guest speaker, and it is Mark Smith and Rinda Smith, who have this particular channel. And I wanted to go on here and see if I can do my live. I was trying to go live on here. They do videos, community. I thought I could. I thought on the front page it would have that that there's a live program on here. Maybe you can. I'll get that up. So, but I've got someone helping me with questions tonight, and I see some people are saying hi to me, which I appreciate. And I may not get everybody tonight in saying hi, so forgive me. But tonight, I want to talk about an important topic, and I also want to answer your questions this evening as well. And so I hope you will send in your questions to me. I really believe it's enjoyable for me, and also could be helpful for you to get a chance to ask questions, and I would get a chance to answer some of those. I might, if I could mention that if you go to Vimeo, and it's Jerry Wise on Vimeo, I think it's Jerry Wise / on demand or something like that, that you can find a workshop that I have uploaded that's audio with graphics, and you can listen to this workshop. It's an hour and 39 minutes, and it's a training with a live audience in which we talk about how to use family of origin work to heal ourselves, and actually to help heal others as well. So if you want to go and view that workshop, it is pay-per-view, and I'm trying to work it out now where if you buy the workshop, you can, well, I think it is possible, you can buy it and download it, and then you can have it to watch as many times as you'd like, and to listen to as many times as you like. But if you go to Vimeo, Jerry Wise, you'll find that online workshop. And we answered a bunch of questions in that almost 2 hours worth of time together with the audience, and they were great, and we had a really fun time. And I think if you wanted to learn more about healing and healing family of origin issues for you, I think that would be a great workshop for you to take a look at. So I wanted to mention that, get the advertisement out of the way. And I've got a first question here from Cheryl, and she says, I'm fresh out and in shock from a narcissistic relationship. What do you suggest? And that's always a very good question. I have a number of people that I work with who are fresh out of narcissistic relationships. And one of the first things that I recommend, were you increasing the volume there? Yeah, it might be. That one of the first things that I recommend is to work on a relapse prevention program. In other words, what do I need to keep in? What do I need to have to stay in place? What do I need in place so that I do not return to the narcissistic relationship? And also, how I'm going to avoid narcissistic relationships in the future. Because we don't want to return to the narcissistic relationships, and oftentimes those are very sticky. In other words, we get out and then we get convinced and we go back, and then they love bomb us or hoover us, and then we fall prey. We are the prey to their predatorizing in the relationship, and we feel lonely, or we feel abandonment issues. And with that fear of abandonment, we find ourselves going right back into their arms or right back into that relationship. So the first thing is strengthening that. What is my plan in staying away? Who am I going to work with? Where do I need to go? Do I need to go to love addict relationship groups, CODA groups, adult children of alcoholics group, adult children of dysfunctional family groups? Can I get group support? Seeing a therapist, seeing a coach, talking to someone to get the focus off the narcissist, because oftentimes we have really focused on the narcissist and their needs, and rather than um, focusing on our own needs, which are very important. And we've probably done too little of that because we don't have the self-love and self-focus that we need. I think also in when we are just fresh out of a narcissistic relationship, we want to learn as much as possible about narcissism and how what are the patterns and how do we interact with those narcissistic patterns so that we don't fall prey to those. We also want to begin to learn to focus on ourselves and not the relationship, but on us. And then there are later skills and phases talking about self differentiation and how we can learn to grow up, to mature, to become more healthy. Yeah, we have Mark has come home, and one of our little pets is having a party about that. The so there are just a few things, and Cheryl, if you'll be patient before we're done, I'm going to be talking about healing from a narcissistic relationship. And in fact, I think there's a great book you might want to take a look at, Healing from Narcissistic Relationships. And it's a very good book which you could learn a lot of good things getting out of a relationship with a narcissist. So I hope you'll keep sending in your questions. And by the way, this particular subtitle is A Caretaker's Guide to Recovery, Empowerment, and Transformation. And recovery, of course, is kind of that first stage of beginning to recover from the unhealthy relationships that we've had. And then empowerment is beginning to own our own sense of power. When we're in a relationship with a narcissist, of course, what do? We power shed. We shed our own power. We also self-shed as well. We shed a self. We de-self, we de-power in having a relationship with a narcissist. So we want to be empowered and get our power back. And then transformation is, how do I become somebody I wasn't? Which is actually growing up. How do I become not what I used to be, what I want to be and where I'm going? By being an authentic self, having a solid sense of self, and learning how to balance the two forces of togetherness and separateness. Often in a narcissistic relationship, we're going to have way too much togetherness and too much enmeshment. And even if we distance ourselves, or if the relationship has felt distant, just because something feels distant doesn't mean it is distant. Something can feel distant, but can be very enmeshed. Like I've had, couples been married for 20 years. They hardly talk. They argue often. When they do talk, they are prickly with each other, and they don't feel very close at all. So they'd come in and say, hey, we are just feeling so distant from one another. And of course, one of the things we want to look at is, well, how over or how enmeshed or over enmeshed are you? How fused are you? Because too much fusion will cause too much distance. And it's the fusion that causes the distance, not the distance that causes the distance, if I can use that. That's kind of a family systems way to um, understand distance when we feel distant. Um, so I hope you will, this is your chance to ask questions tonight, and I hope some will send in their questions for me. I would be happy to go ahead and start on what are some of the things you can do to heal from a narcissistic relationship. How can we heal from a narcissistic relationship? And I've got some things used by Margellus Fieldstad or Jeltstad. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. I should have probably found that out before. I'm not sure where she's from. But it's Fjelstad. And that's a very good book to use and to read. And I've got some of her ideas that I'm going to use tonight, and then I'm going to share with you some of my suggestions about healing from a narcissistic relationship. And Cheryl also mentioned I felt abandoned in relationship. I'm not sure I know exactly what that means. If you felt abandoned as a result of the narcissistic relationship or while you were in it, and probably you were abandoned in the relationship. And then you end up, oftentimes we can get abandoned or discarded by a narcissist because they're done with us. We're not doing what they want, or they're looking for somebody else. That's a good question. So with the, remember, feeling abandoned has as its roots and has as its, at its core, our own self-abandonment. We will abandon ourselves first, or have learned to abandon ourselves, and then we end up finding other relationships in which we get abandoned. And I think that happens frequently with abandonment. So that's where, and I make the point that it's very important that we focus on ourselves and our own self-abandonment so that we don't continue to get abandoned. Because often again, we have abandoned ourselves or de-selfed. Then when we de-self, we're going to get abandoned. Because that's going to happen because we got everything riding on them. Because our self is gone, we've abandoned us, and then we're going to set it up for good abandonment. It's going to happen. Cheryl also writes, which I think is a great question, why does fusion cause distance? Because we are not balancing togetherness and separateness. And so what happens, well, if I use this as an example, what is the opposite of love? Well, so many people will say, since I can't hear you all speaking to me, but I would ask people in an audience or group, what's the opposite of love? And what do people tend to say? Hate. And no, that's not the opposite of love. Love and hate are down here with fusion on this end, then there's a line, and over here is something that's the opposite. But these two, love and hate, are both out of fusion or connectedness, over-connectedness. Down here on this side, the opposite of love is, or over-connectedness, is neutrality, detachment. That's what's the opposite of love. And the opposite of fusion is not distance. Distance is another form of fusion because we only distance because we feel too close and we can't handle it. And so we handle the fusion or the engulfment or the enmeshment by pulling away and being distant. But it's still a reactivity to the overcloseness or the fusion, Cheryl. And so the opposite of fusion is neutrality or distance or self-differentiation. That's the opposite of that. So you put two little arms that come down from this side. You put closeness and you put distance. Both of those are functions of fusion. Or enmeshment and distance. Both are a function of fusion. The opposite is detachment, neutrality, self-differentiation. I hope that helps, because again, distance is caused from us not being able to handle fusion. And so we do a pendulum back and forth between, okay, now we're oceanic and we're all real one and close and fused and enmeshed. And then when it gets too hot, the relationship, or highly charged, then we move the pendulum all the way to the other end, and now I'm distant. Well, I don't care about you. I'm mad at you. I'm getting away from you. No, you're still just as close as you were inside emotionally. You're just going to the other side of the pendulum. Health is when we are at the 90-degree mark, and we neither are too close nor distant. We are self-differentiated and centered. So I hope that helps, Cheryl, to give you some information about how distance, how fusion can cause distance, fusion can cause enmeshment. I think it's Soren, Soren. What are the markers of a healthy relationship? Well, I was probably kind of, implying those in what I was just sharing. A healthy relationship is in which two people have some self-differentiation. They have a self, and they are not enmeshed with their family of origin or enmeshed with others, and they have a healthy relationship in which they can balance togetherness and separateness, or balance connectedness and autonomy in a healthy balance, 50-50 or 100-100, where they can balance that, and they are neither overly enmeshed or overly distant or detached. Another way of describing it is being myself while being connected. Now, that's a very simple phrase, but it's not an easy thing to do. Being yourself while staying connected. Just try to do that, and you will find how much work that can be. Because oftentimes, if I think I'm going to try to be myself, I end up then running away. And as I'm running away, I'm saying, you shouldn't treat me this way. I'm going to be myself. And I'm running away from them. Too much distance. Or I can go, well, it's all my fault and it's my problem and I'm the one's causing all this. And that's truly being me, that I'm going to give in. No, that's too much togetherness and not enough self, of being a sense of self. So having a self while staying connected is a real challenge, to hold those both together. Relationships are paradoxical. And the best relationship is when we can hold them both together at the same time. Togetherness, separateness, and love, connectedness, and neutrality and autonomy of self. So we want both of those in a healthy relationship. I don't know if Soren that answers that, but I was trying to give you an idea of kind of how you'd conceive of a healthy relationship from a family systems approach. And let's see, I'm not sure who this one is. Something TV?
Yeah.
Gawker?
Yeah.
Gawker TV or something?
Yeah.
Can you talk about feeling guilt after seeking help, and something people you were seeking help from supported the narcissist instead? Yeah, that happens every day, all the time. Especially covert narcissists, even malignant sociopathic narcissists, that can happen too. And I have a lot of folks where pastors, counselors, coaches, friends, children, co-workers, business partners, all get caught up in and become either flying monkeys for a narcissist, or they end up supporting the narcissist because of their what little they show in reality to the real world out there. They could be charming, they could be intelligent, they could be wealthy. I've got one very, very wealthy father, and his son, I'm working with him, and he's got to keep an image, and everybody, and in fact, he's kind of on the world stage. Everybody thinks he is just wonderful. Behind the doors and behind the curtains, he's not wonderful at all. Nor is he caring. He has little to no empathy. He just knows how to play the stage. And he does that very well. And so other people can't understand why his wife, whom he's divorcing and wants to give her nothing, and also he has abandoned his children, they wonder why his children and his wife are upset with him, because he's such a nice guy, and he gives philanthropically, and he's, and so they get on the narcissist side. And I think one of the things I'm hoping to do a video soon on how do you counter a smear campaign? What do you do with a smear campaign? And again, I consider that in the smear campaign area, that in which the everybody gets on board with the narcissist, and so the narcissist plants all this information out there to other people, smearing the people he doesn't want to know the truth, for that to be out or to be believed. And I'm going to do a video on what should you do about that. What's the best way to handle a smear campaign? And I've got some things I want to share. And of course, one of those is we begin to gain our own sense of reality, self-acceptance, our own sense of knowing what we know to be the truth, and becoming comfortable and at ease and confident about that, regardless of the smear campaign. Just because somebody's having a smear campaign doesn't mean it's true. It's not true. I don't care if 1,000 people believe it. If it's not true, it's not true. And you have a right to your own reality. Though if we've been in a relationship with a narcissist, we've been taught we don't have a right to our own reality. If we've grown up with narcissistic parents, we're taught you don't have a right to your own reality. There's only one reality, and that's your parents, or that's this relationship partner who is strong and narcissistic, has no empathy, and can gaslight and lie and put up all the false facts there are. So, let's see here. Yeah, and whenever we feel like there's been a smear campaign or somebody we've gone to be helped, we may feel shame or guilt because they don't believe us or they believe the narcissist. That's when we've got to deal with our shame and guilt. We can't change what other people are going to think or what sides they're going to take. We have no control over whose side they're going to take. That's where our work of self-differentiation and learning to be a strong and healthy self, that's fine if you want to believe him. That's perfectly fine. I know in my past experience, and when I was a pastor, and there were people who were saying things that were not true, and there was a smear campaign and all kinds of problems with that, and getting to the place of going, wait a minute, it doesn't matter how many people believe this. I know what happened, and I know what I've done and what I didn't do. And this couple was being very disruptive and lying and distorting things. And so I had to begin by learning to be confident in my own reality. And that may require staying quiet. And then at the golden moment, the truth can be a very powerful explosion of the narcissistic story, the narcissistic lie. But you may have to wait till the golden moment for that to happen. Because many times people who have been subverted and come over to the narcissist side don't want to hear the truth. Well, don't, as the Bible says, don't cast your pearls before swine. If someone doesn't want to hear the truth and wants to believe you're a narcissist, don't waste your time trying to convert them. Let them have their fake reality. They have a right to have a fake reality. And but it's at their peril. It will be at their peril. Because usually karma, or usually whatever's going to happen, it's going to come out and there's going to be a crack in the story. And then they will feel however they are going to feel. But I don't have to save everybody. I don't have to get everybody on my bandwagon. That I am able, like in the book Braving the Wilderness, being able to belong and connect to others while standing alone. And if you notice, you can hear the author, Brene Brown, talking about those two, balancing out of those two forces of being yourself, which is the standing alone part, while belonging and connecting, and balancing those two forces. And that's why that's a great book called Braving the Wilderness by Brene Brown. She's a family systems proponent, a Murray Bowen family systems proponent. Mark had given me a note, said, share about your new audio product. The audio product was the result of a workshop that I actually did at Family Tree. And we had an audience, and the room was full. We had a great time. It was recorded, and we talked about using family of origin, family systems, to heal ourselves and to help heal others. Not with the focus of healing others, but if you heal yourself, many times many other boats will rise with you. But you're not trying to raise their boats, you're trying to raise your boat. But that will raise other boats with you because it's a system. And if I bring more self to a system, I'm going to have less reactivity, less being pinged and charged by the system. The electricity of the unhealthy emotions are not going to flow through me, in which I have systems feelings. That's not going to happen. We're going to have a circuit breaker called a self. If I have a self, then I'm not going to absorb all of the crazy feelings and emotions that are shooting through everybody in this system. They're not going to be able to go in because I have a circuit breaker. I have a self, and I am more self-differentiated. And so what I'm talking about in that video is examples of those, how to self-differentiate. I answer many, many questions throughout that hour and 40 minutes that we talked. It's on Vimeo, and go to Jerry Wise On Demand, and you'll see that workshop there for you. Let's see, I think we've got another question. This is from Jackie. I should read these before I read them out loud because I may not have the answer to this. I was just going to say, here I am, I'm reading something, I don't know what the
Just
answer is.
tap dance.
Just tap dance. I'll just tap dance around. I'll just. Well, I stayed at a Holiday Inn. Would that be enough for being important or smart or knowledgeable or something? Jackie, how do I deal with an unhealthy relationship with an angry, bitter, and hurtful, I think, family member? That's always a good. Well, first of all, I would stop dealing with it. Now, you may say, well, what do you mean stop dealing with it? First of all, we may not want to internalize it. I don't want that relationship to be in me, if that makes sense. I don't want to internalize it. And oftentimes we are internalizing or absorbing these family members and their toxicity. And then we go, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with this? I'm not sure there's a how, to deal with it. There's only I'm not going to deal with it anymore. And that doesn't mean I'm just going to cut them off and say I'm not dealing with them anymore. I want to stop the internalizing in me. They're going to keep on doing whatever they're doing. They're going to be toxic. They're going to be nutty or whatever, hurtful, bitter. And again, their hurtfulness, their bitterness, their anger, and all of those things are the problems within them. They're not the problems within you. And so I want to leave their problems with them, not with me. And so I want to try to stop dealing with them internally. I want to deal with them from the standpoint of for me, a 63-year-old man, not a 17 or 14-year-old man or boy. I want to deal with them as an adult. And I want to think, in one of my videos, I think I talk about, well, what would Betty do? Betty is a neutral person who's a neighbor or some other person in town. And what would she do with this family member? What would she say? What would she do? And you might be able to get some ideas as to what would Betty do. Well, Betty would be aghast. Betty would go, I beg your pardon. Betty would go, I'm confused. Betty would go, well, you sound really angry. I hope you get over that, and I'll see you tomorrow, or whatever. Or Betty might say, I'm not sure that's someone I really want to have a lot of contact with. And if we're adults, we don't have to have contact with anybody. Once you become an adult, you don't owe your family, you don't owe your parents, you don't owe anybody a relationship. Now, I don't know if this relationship with this family member would require one of two things. And I often share with people, this is something you might want to consider in that before you make a decision to go no contact, or before you go make a decision for cutting off from someone, and I do kind of make a distinction between no contact and cutting off, but I'm not going to go into all that right now. But before you go no contact, is you decide, do I need more self to work with this person or to, quote, deal with them, or do I need no contact? But make sure you ask the first question first before you go to the no contact. Do I need more self? Because if I'm really, really immature and too sensitive and naive and overly emotional and highly charged and not very self-differentiated, then I'm going to want to cut off from everybody who caused me discomfort or upsetness, or I think might be a little narcissistic. I'm going to cut off or want to go non-contact with everyone. See how they're treating me? I just feel so awful when they do this. When actually it's our immaturity. See if we can grow and be stronger in ourselves, have a tougher skin, and then see if you want to go no contact. And you still may want to, and that still may be needed. But I'm just saying, I always want to ask someone, does this need self-differentiation, or does this need no contact? And so many people, I think, just jump to the no contact. And that would be with a narcissist, narcissism is on a continuum. I know everybody. Mark, could you hand me that book right there?
Yes, sir.
A lot of people give me a hard time about narcissism being on a continuum. Not everybody is the same narcissist. But, it's true for any. Depression's on a continuum. Schizophrenia is on a continuum. Everything that's in the DSM-5 or whatever is generally on a continuum. Now, certainly we can say this person for sure has this, but this is a book called The Narcissism You Know. The Narcissist You Know, by Joseph Burgo, and his chapter 1, I Have Many Different Faces, The Narcissistic Continuum. And that's the very first chapter of this book. And I think there are many who, there are different, it's on a continuum of 0 to 10. There are 10 narcissists, and there are narcissists that are 2. Now, if someone's a covert 2 narcissist or something, we may want more self-differentiation and not complete cutoff or no contact. because we want to be a strong sense of self. Um, and I could give examples of that, but I just want to let you know that um, we want to at least ask that question. We definitely want to ask that question about, do we need more self-differentiation here? And when I say self-differentiation, I mean more maturity, more detachment, more autonomy, so that you can say, Jerry, I hate you. You're the ugliest guy in the world. And I go, excuse me? Are you okay? I didn't know my looks mattered to you so much. Are you all right? you know, then I have a stronger sense of self and more of a thicker skin. And I don't go, oh, they just said I look so awful. Oh, I'm just dying as a result of what they're doing. Now, I would have felt that way many decades ago. I definitely would have felt that way as a codependent. And now I just go into a confusion mode and go, huh? What do you, I'm really confused because I have a barrier. Nothing goes in without me processing it. That's good or bad. Also, if someone says, Jerry, you are the greatest thing since sliced bread, you're wonderful, you're a genius, you transform my life and every family member of my own in my life. That also goes through this barrier and filter as well. Because then I take it in and go, oh, that's very nice. But it doesn't go to the ego side. It doesn't go to the self-esteem side. That's not where I get self-esteem from, by somebody giving me compliments. Self-esteem comes from the self. It doesn't come from you. Now I can take in that compliment and go, I appreciate that very much. That was very kind of you. I'm so glad that my information helped you. But it doesn't do anything for my self-esteem. If it does, I may have a problem. Because then it's not self-esteem, it's other esteem. And I don't want other esteem. I want self-esteem. But I certainly would take compliments, and I certainly can reject or not absorb negative, toxic comments. Well, why are you so stupid? Why did you do that? I'm going, well, I don't know what do you mean? I already know I'm not stupid. I mean, I may have a stupid side, but I'm not stupid like you're saying. So actually what you're saying to me sounds like a foreign language. And that's a little more neutral. And I think when you listen to a narcissist, remember you're listening to a foreign language or a language from another planet. Don't assume it's a normal language or a normal translation. When they go, you're just such a stupid so-and-so, you're lazy, why do you take that as serious? That's very, very other language-ish. It doesn't make sense. And we should in our mind be going, gobbledygook, gobbledygook, gobbledygook. That's what should be going off when we're hearing that. Because it's not reality. It's fake. And if you want to say it, I guess you can say it. I mean, it would be no different if I came to you and said, do you know you are a Coca-Cola? Now, how many of you would feel hurt by that? Probably not very many. Don't you think you'd be confused and go, what's wrong with Jerry? He just called me a Coca-Cola. But yet when a narcissist says you're stupid, you take that as truth and as reality and as what? No, listen to it as Coca-Cola. That it's Coca-Cola. That's what it is. It's just Coca-Cola. And we should think of it as that ridiculous. Because they can gaslight and do all kinds of nutty stuff. They're trying to get their way. They're trying to convince you of these things. Now, I fully understand if we grew up I fully understand if we grow up in a dysfunctional home, we are more vulnerable we're more vulnerable to those kinds of comments because they harken back to our family of origin. So one of the ways to have that be more Coca-Cola talk is for us to heal what buttons it pushes and the triggers from the past. So that if I don't have those triggers, I'm more easily able to listen to the narcissist and go, he just called me a Coca-Cola. That's crazy. You're not a good parent. You've never been a good parent. And you're a worthless wife. You're a stupid husband. It's all Coca-Cola talk. All Coca-Cola. But we take it like it's serious. Excuse me, let me get a little drink of my diet root beer. And we should stop taking it so seriously. And that's building a sense of self and building a greater, having a thicker skin. Kate Nadine, why do I give everyone else slack, but I'm so hard on myself all the time? Well, I don't know you, Kate Nadine, and I hope you will not take everything I say personally in any way, because I'm just trying to address this particular question. When I think about giving everyone else slack, most of the time what I'm doing is I'm letting everybody else off the hook, and I am overly hypercritical of myself. And so I have two things to heal: how overly critical I am with myself, which I need to heal and work on. And then second of all, I need to beef up the accountability and responsibility that others should be doing. When we give everyone else slack, we're probably over-functioning. And it's not that we shouldn't be merciful or not, or let some things, slide off our back, or, of course I don't get upset about every little thing, and I don't, that's not something. Excuse me. Oh, I see Kate Nadine. I am Cheryl. Oh, I got you. Okay. I'm certainly not troubled by so much, and I've grown to be less troubled by what other people say, which is really a relief, and it's a stress reliever as well. I don't do it perfectly. I'm still growing. Let's see. I will think it's probably going to take me about 120 or 30 years to become perfect. The problem is I don't think I'm going to make it. And that's okay. Some problems take more than one lifetime to fix. And if we give everybody slack, which you can if you want to give everybody slack, but that's kind of that also has a feel of codependency, that everybody else kind of everybody deserves a banquet, I deserve the crumbs. And that's typical of the codependent and someone who has lower self-esteem. And we have that highly critical, perfectionistic, I'm doing it all wrong, I'm very hard on myself. It's time to accept ourselves as we are, with our imperfections. And you'd be surprised how many other people will begin to accept that as well. Other people will tend to accept what you truly accept. But you have to accept it, and truly accept it. And that's not easy. But if you will accept it, then other people will come to accept it. I have a family member, this is Kelly, who likes to insult me in the form of a joke, and I have a hard time when it happens. I don't know how to reply. I feel stupid. How do I navigate this? Well, I always like to, first of all, you need to heal your stupidity feelings. You need to get the stupid out of you, because that gets triggered when someone says this joke. First of all, if they insult you, then you can always talk to them as in my case, a 63-year-old man, and go say, hey, I just want to let you know, Uncle Bob, that I really felt that was kind of insulting. I'd rather you not do that anymore. Or I can take the joke, and if it's a joke, and I can be playful with it. And if somebody's making a joke that's really kind of an insult, I'm trying to think of a good joke. And that's why if you were here, I would ask you to do that and we'd do a role play about that. Um, with a joke, we want to have a thick skin and we want to focus on our thinking and not on our feeling. Stop the feelings, focus on the thinking. Observe, don't absorb. Absorb is the feelings, observe is the thinking. When someone's going to insult you with a joke, think, don't feel. Also, heal your stupid feelings because you feel stupid whether you get insulted or not, would be my hunch. It's just that triggers that feeling of stupidity. So they make a joke, it's kind of rude or insulting. What I would want to do is either try to be playful with it and throw it back to them, or I would say, well, I think that, and again, in the actual example, I would do a better job. And maybe Kelly, you can write in an example of one that you got, and I'd be happy to help you respond. But I like to learn to respond in a way. I want to learn to respond in a way that is not reactive. And it could be just as simple as, well, it was funny, but also rude. Hey, Bob, that was funny, but it also was an insult. And I've done that too. So even if you want to, because you're observing, and so what I'm doing is I'm sharing my observation. And when I'm observing, then I can share back with them what I'm observing. Hey, that sounded funny, but it also sounded insulting. And I can do it with a smile. And again, I don't know how they would react. I don't know what the relationship is that you have with this person. But I hope that helps some, Kelly. Annie writes, how do you develop that tough skin? And I think that's very important. One of the ways I think you can begin to develop a tough skin is begin to do some readings in family systems books and self-differentiation. Because you need to, and it's helpful to change your paradigm. It's very helpful to change your paradigm. Reading books like The Dance of Anger, The Dance of Intimacy, both by Harriet Lerner. Her Forgiveness book by Harriet Lerner. Brene Brown, Braving the Wilderness. Roberta Gilbert, The Extraordinary Relationships. Some of those are very good books, are very important and can help you begin to change your thinking, which begins to strengthen your skin, toughening your skin. Because I don't want to be as sensitive. If you're an empath, try to work your way out of that. I'm really saying, if you're an empath, work on not being. Now, I understand, I tend to be an empath. I mean, I certainly understand that. But I want to balance out my life where I'm an empath and not. I want to have that balance. I want to be able to not be an empath too. I want to have some control over how I am empathic. And I think that that's very important, which is why I talk about the feeling stopping part. I believe feelings are very important. I think feelings should be processed and worked through, but not when you're in the middle of a train wreck or going through that in a relationship. And when you're challenged with a highly charged situation. Because once you're highly charged and once you have lots of anxiety, once you're really reactive, your feelings are all your enemy at that point. That's what it works against you. They work against you. And I don't want my feelings working against me. I want my feelings to be expressed and to work for me. And oftentimes that all that anxiety and stress and highly charged stuff is often systems feelings from family of origin that haven't been resolved yet. Soren asks, how do we build self-esteem? I think that's a good question, and I think one of the ways to build self-esteem is learn about what is self. What does it mean to be a self? And that's where I think the family systems writings and things can be really helpful in terms of understanding self. Growing Yourself Up by Jenny Brown. Oh my gosh, mindfulness. Oh, I can't believe I can't remember that. I would, any other moment I could tell
That
you.
one guy?
No. It's the woman. Her name is, oh, that's terrible. I'll think of it, but it's on mindfulness. Anyway, I'll get back to that. If you send me an email, I'll send you to jerrywise5@gmail.com. I'll send you a list of all those books, and that one will be in there. The Mindful Compass. That's it. The Mindful Compass. She's also talking to you about what a real self is. And if you begin to know what a real self is, it starts to happen. If you don't know what a real self is, you're going to just keep bouncing around the walls. So it's important to know, what is a real self? What is the notion of what selfhood means? And that's what family systems helps us to learn. And so that's a way of beginning to raise self-esteem. I think also another way, if I eliminated my low self-esteem, doing the miracle question or miracle cure, if you cured your low self-image and cured your low self-esteem, what would be the downsides? What keeps the low self-esteem in place? And if you can begin to look at, if I had high self-esteem, then I would do this or I would do that. Well, all of that can be very frightening. And so it might be better if I stayed with my low self-esteem than actually get more self-esteem, because I don't know the downsides of having greater self-esteem. And we always think having greater self-esteem would always just be wonderful. If I didn't have this guilt, that would be better. If I didn't have this shame, I'd be happier. Well, those are all the upsides. What are the downsides? Because all of those feelings and all the relationship patterns we have are paradoxical. And that's what's taught in family systems. And so we want to look at those paradoxical sides. And if I can understand, if I had more self-esteem, I'd go confront them. I would change my membership there. I would lose that relationship there. I would let go of, I might even divorce my husband or my wife. It might be a lot scarier to have more self-esteem than not. And it might be better to have lower self-esteem, because then you're safer. Because having self-esteem can be rather scary. So we want to look at, why are we scared of having more self-esteem? Here's. This is Mark. Can you address the danger of venting and triangling even on the chat stream? I'm not sure I know. I can't.
The people messaging in.
A
little venting and triangling going on. Can you explain?
Can you address? Okay. I don't know what's happening on the chat stream, but I can talk about venting and triangulating. That triangulating we triangulate because we have a lower self-differentiation. And we want to increase that self-differentiation so we don't triangle. We get triggered by others and can triangle in. Whether I go in to save someone, or go in to assist someone, go in to be against somebody. No, I don't have to do that. I just want and need to be myself. And I don't know what venting is going on particularly. I mean, it's okay to vent, but I think it's good if you either get permission to do that or if you know what the purpose of the venting is. Whenever I have, I'll take calls and someone will call me and say, "Oh, hi Jerry, it's great to be able to talk to you." And then they start telling me their story or telling me all the problems with their spouse or their family or their, and I hear the venting going on. And do you know what I always ask them? How can I be of help? I'm not sure what to do with your venting. I'm not sure. Not that I think your story is a bad one. I mean, and it certainly does sound very troubling and problematic. But how can I be of help with this? And I don't have a context for that. You're just venting. Are you reaching out for help? Are you asking for advice? How are you taking responsibility for your venting rather than just venting and walking away, which is kind of a drive-by? I'm just going to vent and walk away. So we want to take responsibility for our venting. Why are we doing it? Even on my YouTube channel, I'll see people who will vent underneath the videos, in the comments and such. And it's kind of like, what was the point of that? I don't know what the point of what you were, saying. And that's how lost they are if we're just venting. And I know they're lost. I have done that in the past. I've vented in the past, and I can be lost. But it is a sense of not knowing self. At that point, it's just blah, 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 blah. Here's all the problem. Well, that's a part of the victimhood also notion that we have. I know Mark talks about that a lot. And I want to stay a victim, so here's all my venting. Da, 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 da. And we're not ready to not be victims. Because again, if you stop being a victim, that can be very scary. And that's why we continue to be victims, because that feels safer to us. And one, I think, Taiwana, how do you think and not feel? I think that's, and one of the things about family systems theory, and when you read the books, you will begin to see and begin to understand that we make a distinction between the thinking process and the feeling process. And one of the things as we mature, the less mature we are, the more our thinking and feelings are fused. The more mature we are, the more they are separate. And I can feel and I can think. When we're immature, we feel, think. And that's that reactivity that we have. We want to separate and have a feeling system and a thinking system. And that's one of the things I teach, one of the things I help people to learn, so that we don't fuse those. We don't want to fuse thinking and feeling. That it's already way too fused when we're codependent, when we're enmeshed. Thinking and feeling is all fused. And so one of the ways to gain self-esteem, one of the ways to become more mature, is to have thinking and feeling. So we want to do that. Then I've got, let's see, here's a slightly, let's see, the narcissistic been subjected to. Yeah, well, I think Aga, I believe, I don't know how it's pronounced, Aga. How do you help a slightly cognitively impaired person see the narcissistic abuse they've been subjected to by his own mother, and are there therapists who can help disabled or help disabled victim? Well, that's kind of a specialized group. I think there are therapists that can help someone who is either cognitively impaired or disabled in some way, even mentally, though it's more tricky because we now have a real anatomical or biological problem that we're dealing with. Um, the I don't know how to make someone see something. That's kind of the same as you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I might be able to lead a horse to water, but I can't make them see something. I can invite them to see something. Um, I can invite them to see something, um, and I can repeat that, which we often do if you're an Al-Anon, have alcoholic spouse or alcoholic family member. It's perfectly okay to say, they come home, they're upset, they just got stopped and got a DUI, and they go, "Well, it had nothing to do with my drinking," and you go, "Well, that's very confusing. It sounds like the drinking and the driving kind of are connected." And again, I can't make them see that they're alcoholic, but I can simply observe and state the facts. But I can't make them see it. And so, yeah, if you could, I don't know of any particular therapist that I don't know what area you're in, um, for finding someone who understands narcissism. I think just continuing to repeat the message in a calm, and I think being calm is very important. Because if I'm more matter of fact, I might get a better hearing than if I'm too intense. Mrs. Waymeyer, my high school algebra and Latin teacher, was smart enough to know if the kids are loud before class, don't be reactive and get louder to get them to be softer. She knew to just start being softer. And so she would start the class while we're all talking and go, "Okay, everybody, we're going to have a quiz. And I'd like you to look at chapter." And so everybody's panicking because they can't hear what she's saying. We're all shushing each other. And she knew she knew how to be smart about that process. And I think the same is true when you're trying to convince someone of something. And I might even say to someone, "I know this is probably not important to you, and may be just crazy. But I think your drinking may affect your life. But, maybe not." Now I'm talking to them in a way they don't have as many defenses for, because I'm almost denying my own claim, but I'm doing it on purpose. I believe they have a drinking problem, but I'm doing it on purpose, and it goes around to their back door rather than their front door, and they don't have as many defenses for that. Whereas if you came right up and said, "You're an alcoholic," they have all the answers for that. But if you come to them and say, "I don't think you're an alcoholic. I think you have a drinking problem," then they're going to go, what does that mean?" And good. I'm glad you're thinking about it, because it'd be good to think about what does that mean. Let's see. Ellie writes, "Protecting self is complex." It certainly is. I'm not sure that's a question. It is a statement, but protecting self is very complex. And I think protecting self has to do with self-esteem, having a thickening of the skin, thinking more, feeling less. And again, there's a place for feelings and a place to deal with woundedness and pain. But I don't think that place is to be dealt with all of our relationships around us. And that's why I say it might be better to think more and feel less. Someone mentioned something. Soren said, "Why does being a victim feel safer?" And the same with low self-esteem. Well, let's look at the upsides of being a victim. Do you not believe there are upsides of being a victim? I get attention. I don't have to change. Everybody sees me as courageous or poor me. I don't have to change because I'm a victim. And look what's been done to me. And there's lots of things I can say, "Well, that's because I'm a victim." And we can use it as an excuse. And so there are lots of upsides for being a victim. Also, I don't have to confront my own need for healing and self-differentiation. I don't have to grow because I'm a victim. And so there are some upsides to being a victim. And so it can feel very safe. I'm very safe in my victimhood because I don't have to change. I can just be wounded and let everybody know I'm just a wounded victim. Don't bug me. I'm just a wounded victim. Don't challenge me. Don't do any of that because I'm a victim. And then you say, same with self-esteem. Low self-esteem can feel very safe. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't have downsides. Low self-esteem has lots of downsides, but it also has some upsides. If you're going to have low self-esteem, again, well, I just can't do that. I couldn't do it because I just don't feel strong enough. And we can, again, low self-esteem, we're not going to confront others. We're not going to deal with power or empowerment for ourselves. We're not going to have to deal with boundaries. We're not going to have to deal with assertiveness. If I have low self-esteem, I don't have to deal with any of that. Hot dog. I get to do that. And those are some of the upsides for that. But there's plenty of downsides too. Let me check here. This is Gawker TV. When you are setting boundaries and people start overreaching, I think, or overreacting or protesting, how do you handle those reactions? Stop handling their reactions. Handle your own. Don't handle their reactions. Just like when people say, well, how do I deal with it? Don't. Stop dealing with it. You're enmeshed. Stop handling their reactions. Let them have their reactions. They can have their reactions. Let them have them. You don't have to handle them. Now, that doesn't mean they're not, if someone is having a reaction, you can ask, then what might I do? Well, that depends on who you are and what you see and what you hear. So if you say, for example, I think I've used the example where an adult child is telling a mother that we're not going to come to Christmas on Christmas morning anymore because we want to have Christmas at home. And that's a boundary we want to set. Mom then freaks out because you're changing all of tradition for the last 35 years. And mom's reacting and overreacting and saying, oh, you can't do that. We've always done that. This is when your brother's coming. This is when we can have our family all together. We can all wear the same sweaters together as we've done for the last 50 years, which I have a family who has absolutely done that. And they buy sweaters for everyone, and everyone must wear those sweaters for the family picture. Then my client that I was working with didn't want to do that. I don't want to wear the sweater. I don't want my kids to wear the sweaters. I don't want to do that. And oh my gosh, you'd have thought the world was coming to an end in the family. You are disrupting the whole tradition that we have had. And so she came to the point of being able to, I'm not going to deal with the family's reactions. Those are their reactions. I'm only going to stay in place. I'm only going to stand still and stand alone. I'm not dealing with their reactions. They can react however they want. They can protest if they want. Well, why are you being so selfish? I'm sure you feel I'm being selfish. However, I'm sure I feel I am not. Well, why can't you just go along with the rest of us? This has been a tradition for da-da-da-da. Because I don't choose to. My preference is that I don't. I don't even know I have a good reason. I just don't want to. And I don't have to. I'm an adult. I don't have to stand for any picture anywhere or wear any kind of outfit for anybody. I'm an adult, by the way, if you hadn't noticed. The law doesn't say I have to wear those sweaters, nor do my children. So if you don't want us in the picture, don't put us there. If you'd like us to wear whatever we have on, then we'll wear that and be a part of the picture. And you all can wear all the sweaters. That's perfectly fine. I'll be happy with that. Well, that would just mess up everything. I know I'm not a very good daughter, and that's okay with me too. I'm just not the daughter you'd like to have or you're happy with. And okay, you're not happy with that. And I also had done some preparation, the client does some preparation, to be ready for their reactions. And what you're being ready for is to not change their reactions, but for you to stand firm and stand alone and stand confident when you get the reactions. So I'm not going to deal with their reactions. I'm going to be myself as I stand there. Um, being solid. And the only thing I have to do is not react. State the boundary and not react. So I have to not react. They can react all they want. Well, we just need to talk about this. Well, I don't choose to talk about it. There's nothing to talk about. I don't think I'm being unclear. And then she practices some of those responses. And those are all responses that resist the enmeshment. Because what all of this reactivity is about is you need to be joining the groupthink now. Why are you stepping outside the family clumping, the family glue? Because I don't want to be in the family glue right now. And that all of this is to get you enmeshed. So the goal is to stay unenmeshed at that point without running away, without being reactive, without cutting off. Well, I understand you feel differently than I do, Mom. That you feel differently. I respect how you feel. I respect that. So you may have the picture, do whatever you want, and that would be fine with me. Let me see here. I hope that helps, Gawker TV. Let's see here. That's my thing then. Okay. Tiffany, that's a good question. How do I keep from soaking up all of my mother's anxiety? It adds to my anxiety and then it's over the top. That's a great question. And I think that's superbly asked. And it's a good question. And not an easy one, but it's a good question. First of all, we want to work on bringing my anxiety down before I interact with Mom, or I want to do some work on my own anxiety. Second of all, I want to realize that, and I want to begin to realize that I do not have to absorb Mom's anxiety. Now, people will sometimes say, well, how do I do that? Well, it's not always a how question. It's a when question. When are you going to stop doing it? That's sometimes more important than how are you going to do it. Now, we may say, I am not ready to stop absorbing my mother's anxiety. That's being right where you are, Tiffany. And there's nothing wrong with being there. We may not be ready. If you stopped absorbing her anxiety, again, what would be the downsides? I know what the upsides would be, but what would be the downsides? What would happen? I know people will sometimes say, well, if I stop absorbing her reality and changing the system by absorbing her reality, then I might not be able to change Mom into someday being the mom I always wanted. Well, we may need to burst that illusion and that fantasy that we're not going to have the mom we always wanted. So we might as well give up the anxiety that we're absorbing because it's not going to help. And it's not going to help her and it's not going to help you. And so what I want to do is think now, think versus feel. So when I go talk to Mom, I want to think and not feel. If I'm over feeling, I'm going to tend to absorb her anxiety. And I want to go and talk to a therapist or a coach and talk about that anxiety that I'm having, and explore what would happen if I gave it up, What would happen if I keep it going? How does it serve the relationship? Because see, when mom has her anxiety and it triggers yours, or you absorb her anxiety, that's the way the relationship works. And so I would want to find out, why does it work that way? How does that benefit who? Who gets benefited by this? And I want to stop that benefit. I want to work on stopping that benefit, because I want to know, why is that happening? And why does it need to happen? Because oftentimes those kind of systems feelings, it's to keep the system in a status quo homeostasis, to keep the system the way it's always been. And that to not absorb that anxiety would begin to challenge the system, because you would function differently and you would act differently. Mom might not be too happy about that if you didn't absorb that anxiety. You might be stronger. You might have a stronger sense of self. That may not be a happy thing for mom or the family. And that can be a real...
Just a follow-up of that question.
Oh, okay.
From Tiffany.
And yeah, that's Tiffany. I soak up her anxiety even when I say I do nothing. Just sitting there, even if she doesn't talk. Oh yeah. Somebody doesn't have to talk to soak up that anxiety at all. In fact, you would be surprised. Walk into church, walk into a room where no one's talking. Do you know how much pinging is going on in that room? And how much the emotional field is happening at that point? There's lots of stuff going on and no one has to say a word. Because that's how finely tuned our emotional field is. And that's the way it was growing up in our family of origin. So she doesn't have to talk. So what happens is you're enmeshed with your mom. There's fusion, emotional fusion. And you want to go and work with someone who can help you with that emotional fusion, to begin to defuse from her and de-enmesh from her. Because we have that pinging when we are enmeshed. And it's just automatic. I mean, it happens way back here at the lizard brain, that limbic system is where that happens. But we can address some of that limbic system even in talk therapy, talk coaching, and reading books about family systems.
More from Tiffany on this discussion.
Oh,
you guys
okay.
Are chatting.
Now we're chatting. Just knowing her anxiety is so high drains me of my energy, makes her feel better though. That's right. Well, that's probably been your job since you were a child. Now, are you ready to give up that role? And I would guess not. And it's okay to say, no, I'm not ready to give up that role of absorbing mom's anxiety so she feels better and I feel worse. I'm not ready to give that up because it's too scary. It's too new. Who knows what mom might say or feel? And you're right. When we absorb other people's feelings or anxiety, it can be very, very draining, Tiffany. Very draining. Let's see. And Joy, or Jay or Joy, says, why do I have to be a good daughter if I don't have good parents? I hope, I mean, that's not something I said. I don't think you have to be a good daughter. That's a role. You don't have to be a good role. You want to be you. There's no law that says I have to be a good son. And I don't know how many times I told my mom, it's just a shame that you didn't get a good son. I'm the youngest, I'm the third, my brother's the second, my sister's the first, and born. And mom would, she just thought I wasn't doing this right, I wasn't doing that right, and should have done this better, should have done that better. And that's after I become an adult, let alone as a kid. And then came to realize, hey, I'm not a good son. That's okay. Who cares? I'm just me. And she's going to think I'm not a good son. Fine, I'm fine with that. And mom says, well, you want to be a bad son? And I said, does it bother you if I'm a bad son? Well, yes, it bothers me. And then I would say, well, it doesn't bother me. And if it doesn't bother me, I'm not bothered by that. Obviously, you're bothered. I understand that. You may want to go and talk to somebody about your bothering and about being bothered. But I'm not the solution to this bother. I'm being me. And if that means what you think is being a bad son, well, then that's what you think. It is. And so we don't have to. And I think so many families and dysfunctional families, I think Jay or Joy, had said so many families do horrible parents, and then they tell the world and tell themselves, why are our children being so bad? And they believe that, even after their children become adults. And they truly believe that. And it's like, oh, no. This is crazy. No, I don't have that expectation. I don't have that bar I have to live with. I had crazy parents. That's okay. And I can be a mediocre son. And I'm going to be mom's son, though my mom has passed away, not even very long ago. But I'm going to be a poor son, but I'll still be a son. And so anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. So I'm a son, and I think it's worth being a son. But nobody said to do it well. I can do it poorly. Now, there was a question. Okay, I got that. Michelle, Jerry, how do I not feel guilt? Oh, that's a good question. And again, we're asking a how question. It's not a matter of how. It's a matter of when. When are you ready to stop feeling guilt? It's your choice, because you're choosing to feel guilt. I understand that it feels very automatic. And so I certainly understand that it feels very automatic. And so it's like, I'm not choosing this. But you don't understand, we have to tell our limbic system that's so automatic, and think is what happens. Remember our fusion of feelings and thinking? And think happens, and I feel guilty and think about the guilty thoughts. When actually we can begin to look at, I don't know if I'm ready to give up my guilt. Are you ready to give up your guilt? And then, of course, I have clients who say, well, yes, I am, Jerry. And I said, no, you're not. So let's be right where you are, and let's accept the fact that I'm not ready to give up my guilt yet. And I want you to write that down, and I want you to say it 50 times a day. I am not ready to give up my guilt. And then let's see what happens. Because then you're being at one with yourself. I am not ready to give up my guilt. Rather than, oh, yes, I am. Oh, no, I'm not. Oh, yes, I am. Because you're 51% not ready to give up your guilt. You're 49% ready to give it up. I want to tip that. And to tip that, we accept it or go into it. And we call that paradoxical acceptance. I want to accept that which I am not believing is really the way things are. Because the way things are is we're not ready to give up that guilt yet. And then we can also look at, what are the downsides if I give up that guilt? What are those downsides? Because I trust you, there are downsides of giving up that guilt. Because guilt is an enmeshing feeling. Guilt is a bonding feeling. Guilt is a mirroring feeling. And so there's a lot of dynamics that go on in giving up guilt. And also accepting yourself is very important. I may not be ready to give up that guilt. Can you be okay not being ready? Actually, we will feel better. And I have a lot of people who say, okay. And I'll say, well, just repeat it after me. I am not ready to give up my guilt. And then they say that. And then they go, gosh, I feel so much better. why do I feel better saying that? I feel lighter, or I feel, because you just accepted yourself, didn't shame yourself, you accepted right where you are at, and you accepted that's where you are right now. You're not ready to give up the guilt, and that's okay. You're not a bad person for not being ready to give up the guilt. You will be, but you have to give yourself time and keep telling yourself, I'm not ready to give up the guilt. I'm not ready to give up the guilt. And then one day you'll find out, I don't have that guilt anymore. I'm not feeling that guilt. Why do I not feel the guilt like I used to feel? Because you've done the work of self-acceptance and paradoxical acceptance as well. And then we can loosen that neurotic part of that guilt that we have, because we're becoming one with ourselves. Neurosis is not being one with yourself and believing things that are not true. Well, yes, I am ready to give up that guilt. No, because if you were ready to give up the guilt, you wouldn't have the guilt. Because they keep saying, no, Jerry, you don't understand. I am ready to give up that guilt. No, you're not, because you have the guilt. So you're not ready yet, and that's okay. You will be ready, and you're going to tip it. If you just keep working at it and accepting yourself, it will tip. And then you'll go, gosh, I guess I am ready to give up that guilt. And now when somebody says that, or mom says that, I'm not going to accept the guilt for that. And I'm not going to feel that. I hope that helps some, Michelle. We're just about getting to the end of our time. My gosh, I hope you haven't been bored, and I hope I didn't get to all my list, though I might mention I'm going to do a video on healing from a narcissistic relationship. So that will be coming out soon, and it's going to have some great points in terms of how to heal from a narcissistic relationship. You can check that out at Jerry Wise Relationship Systems on YouTube, the channel. And we'll be putting it up on Family Tree Life Coaches channel as well. If you want to contact me, or you'd like to be on my mailing list, you can go to www.jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com. Contact me at jerrywise5@gmail.com. I'd be happy to answer questions or send you out resources if that would help. Gosh, I don't know if I can. The other questions I can get into with the time we have left. Right, and remember, on all of the how questions, try to think of them as when questions.
Yeah.
Not how, but when. When are you going to be ready to be authentic? It's a when thing rather than a how. Because everybody goes, Jerry, how can I be mature? I mean, that's like saying, how can I be alive? I mean, you're either alive or you're not alive. I mean, when you're ready to be yourself, you're going to start acting, feeling, and thinking that way. And I think that's going to help you, and I try to help clients work that direction when I work with them. We are coming to the end of our time, and I just want to tell all of you, thank you very much for your questions and your interests. And I wish I could have gotten to all the questions tonight. I will be back again, and Mark and Rinda will be back again on these broadcasts. And I really hope that our discussion at least jarred or triggered some new thoughts for you, because that's what I want to do. I want to challenge your paradigm about the way you think about things, because once you know something and truly know it, you can't unknow it. You can't unlearn it. Once you know relationships are paradoxical, you can never unknow that. Just like once you know 2 + 2 = 4, you can't unknow that. You will always know that. And that grows us towards greater maturity and greater health. Is there anything I've missed, Mark, that I need to share?
I think you covered everything. I'd like to call you a Diet A&W root beer.
Ah, that's right. And that doesn't make any sense. So
You're not gonna
that's
get
how our
offended?
relationship works. And all I do is get confused and not get hurt. And that's what we want to do.
That's
Remember, it's a Coca-Cola talk. It's the Coca-Cola talking. It's the Diet Root Beer talking. Don't let a narcissist make sense to you. Please stop letting a narcissist make sense. And stop letting unhealthy family members make sense to you. They don't and won't. And so if you think and believe they're making sense and are normal but just have problems, no, they're not well. They're not thinking rationally or normally. Why do you take it seriously? Any more than if somebody said, hey, you're a Coca-Cola. Like, what? I want that reaction when I hear the craziness that people say. Well, I wish you the very best in your recovery. I hope you'll continue to work on your recovery and your own healing from narcissistic abuse. I want to thank you again for joining me this evening. And I think I'm going to sign off. I'm tired. It's been a long day. I thank you for joining me, and I wish you the very best. And have a great day.
I don't know.
Are you sure you want to stop? Yes.